Hey, New York Jet fans from all around the world. Welcome to Laugh Through the Turbulence, a New York Jets podcast. The show that delivers you all your Jets content. Here are your hosts, John, Adden, and Monty. All the best to the New York Jet fans. J-E-T-S. Jets. Go Jets.
All right. Happy St.
Jets.
Everybody, and welcome to Laugh Through the Turbulence. And
Got my green on. Let's go.
We're your hosts. I'm John. One of them is Monty. The other one is Adam.
What up?
As the state I could say. Yeah. All right. So we're going to kind of get into it. We have three things to kind of go over today. And the first one is going to be first week of free agency and kind of everything that the Jets have done this week, right? So just real quick, just to run down a list of everything that happened in terms of transactions. I'm going to go through releases, then re-signings, and kind of in the order, right? So first they released Malik Hall. No one really knows who that is, so it's okay. Man. Released Laken Tomlinson. That was a big one. Released CJ Uzama. Re-signed Chuck Clark. Signed Isaiah Oliver. Re-signed Greg, the leg, Zerline. Signed John Simpson. Signed Kinlaw. Tyrod Taylor. Lecky Fotu. Acquired via trade Morgan Moses. Re-signed Thomas Morstead. And then the big one, which was Tyron Smith. They signed to a one-year deal. What do you guys think? How did Joe Douglas do so far?
Well, if I had to give him a grade on his first week, I think I have to give him a B+, solid B+, maybe A-, kind of in that range. I think, it's first week. You already got a nice splash signing in Tyron Smith, which, Jet fans love. We've been begging for it. We've been looking for it. Jets fans been begging for O-line. We've shored that up. I mean, we basically have a starting O-line unit, that is, on par with any other team, except for maybe like the top 5 teams or whatever. But like this starting 5 unit can go against any other team in the league. I'm, very happy with it. And that was our number one, everyone since last year has been, if the Jets just had an O-line, So now we have a great starting O-line. So that's a good starting place. The Tyron Smith gives us a lot of flexibility, puts us right square in the playoff conversation, I think. But for whatever reason, we do tend to have a lot of injuries, as we've seen over these past few seasons, be it turf, be it bad luck, be it the Namath curse, whatever you want to call it, we get injured a lot. So we can't, just rest on our laurels at this point. We need to not just be good. We need to be good and deep with good players, right? So right now we are just good. We need deep too. Because let's look at Tyron Smith. He hasn't played a full season since 2016. And he averages 7.5 games played per season over the past 4 years. So we're hoping, I would imagine, we get 10 games out of him, and that would be good. And if he plays 10 games, that's solid, because those will probably be 10 wins. But that's not really good in terms of the season being 17 games long and postseason being, another few games on top of that, depending on how far we go. So, great start, but not perfect, and need to keep it going.
Yeah, I agree with everything you said, Monty. You can't talk about, the greatness of the Tyron Smith signing, especially, the contract, about a $6 million guarantee. So, great signing in that regard, but you can't talk about that without saying what you did, Monty, in regards to, the injuries. So, that will be in the back of our minds, but you couldn't have asked for, a better signing in terms of Tyron Smith, the trade for Morgan Moses and the signing of John Simpson, I think, really solidified the offensive line. Yeah. Having Tyrod Taylor as a backup is going to be, night and day better than what they had last year, even just in terms of helping the offense, in the film room, all of that kind of stuff, So I think that Tyrod was a great signing. Keeping, the special teamers was huge. But I do want to take a second to talk about Joe Douglas. Coming into this offseason, he was on the hot seat, right? Under the microscope in, New York City with Aaron Rodgers as your quarterback after everything that happened this year, after, outside of the Aaron Rodgers trade, I think he got every single other thing wrong in the offseason except the drafting of Joe Tippmann. So he was coming in after a disastrous offseason and season. And, to be honest, I have to give Joe Douglas a lot of credit, right? Because he didn't panic, when a lot of other GMs would have. He didn't, abandon his core roster building philosophy. He did what he always does. He slow played. He found a value trade. He didn't overpay. He didn't overspend. He didn't get into a bidding war. So you do have to give him a lot of credit there for not panicking, staying the course, doing things the way he always does them. And he got a pretty good result. So you have to give him credit there, that he didn't pull, Mike McCagnon signing Le'Veon Bell to a massive contract. And I love CJ Mosley, but that contract he gave him was an abomination, so have to give Douglas a lot of credit again for not panicking, sticking to his guns, and doing what, we all believe is a good job in rebuilding this offensive line. As you said, Monty, more work to be done, but I think this first week is a very, very big success.
Yeah, and real quick, a big reason why I gave him a B+ was because of the fact that he didn't overpay for anybody. In fact, he underpaid. Like, you saw the guarantees, you saw the prices on these contracts, you saw the deals. Like, he's wheeling and dealing, he's doing his thing. Hats off to him. Great job, Joe.
And the last thing he also did, which wasn't on that list, was restructure CJ Mosley, which was huge because that was going to be $20-something million as a cap hit, and now it's $7 million. So that's like great value, right? I wouldn't say he got everything wrong last offseason, besides the Rodgers thing, to be totally fair. I mean, for starters, like, we didn't quite know. We still haven't quite seen a lot of the stuff that was supposed to pan out from last offseason, because it was supposed to be with Aaron Rodgers, right? So I'd be hesitant to say like all those things are total failures, right? But he also did re-sign, extend Quinn Williams in the offseason too, which was definitely huge, especially considering what the money that's been going out now for those D tackles, and it's been a lot more, right? So I mean, like Chris Jones, highest paid ever, was it $30 million and change, right, or something like that, right, for Chris Jones. So like, we saved a pretty penny on that one. So kudos to that. Yes, I think you guys echoed it right. He didn't overspend. He was patient, which is the real important thing, right? Patient, which is what you need to be in free agency because, there's still more opportunities out there. There's still guys that can help continue filling the roster, and you didn't blow your wad in terms of just like, a one big name or anything like that. And somehow they got that deal on Tyron Smith, which I can't believe it was structured like that. I guess if it goes all the way up to that number, that means he was absolutely worth it, right?
Right.
And it does, but right now, the last piece of the puzzle, I guess, is the wide receiver market, right? Which is the one thing that, like, they still need to fill another spot, and maybe that, and we'll talk about that a little bit later in terms of maybe how that changes our draft strategy now. But I guess maybe that's a good way we could segue now to what's still available out there, and also kind of what's going on in the next couple of days with the Jets, right? They're looking to fill another wide receiver hole. Mike Williams is coming into town to visit, right? And I believe Tyler Boyd is still out there as well. And there's been some other names that have been cut. There's been Michael Gallup, which is always interesting. Michael Thomas was cut, even though I don't think no one wants any part of him. But there's still names that are available out there, right? So it gives you a little more flexibility. Is there any besides Mike Williams, I guess, is there any name that kind of jumps at you guys right now in terms of doing that? Because it looks like the vast majority of the offensive line is complete, right? But they're probably still going to keep adding to it because you can never have enough big fat boys in the front, right?
Yeah, I think for me, after Mike Williams and Tyler Boyd, you're looking at a lot of wide receiver 3s and wide receiver 4s, right? So I feel like if they can't land one of them, as we know, right, just to jump to it, John, Mike Williams is coming in for a visit tomorrow. They can't let him out of the building, right? They got to They got to sign him there, and get him in as long as it's for a
maybe
price,
not.
right?
I don't know.
I mean, look,
I don't know about that either. I mean, like, what
know.
if Mike Williams asked for like a Calvin Ridley type deal?
Well, right, no, I totally get it. I'm saying that if the price is reasonable, right? If he's asking for a 4-year contract with $50 million guaranteed, obviously thanks, but no thanks. But if the number is close, like you got to just pay him, right? If it's in the ballpark of what you're willing to spend, you can't be like, go see what else is out there, because I guarantee you the Panthers will overspend. Right, they're trying to make things easier for their rookie quarterback who had an awful year last year. So I think if the money works, it can't be go think about it and let us know. It's hey man, let's hammer this out. The number's there, let's do it. Right. So I think like that's kind of the caveat there. But if that doesn't work out, you pivot to Tyler Boyd. I mean, there are names, Monty, we've been saying it. I don't know how realistic it is, but can you call the 49ers and investigate again on Ayuk? Are there other things that you can do, in terms of, in the trade market? So I think there are options available, but I think, Mike Williams is probably the best option if he comes at a reasonable.
Yeah. And just to kind of, go into, John's question there about, who jumps out to me or what have you. I mean, just going down the list here, Mike Williams, great, but walking injury report. Odell's still out there, and the Jets were interested in Odell last season, but he's old and he's got injury issues. I don't know. Maybe as a wide receiver 3.
Question: do you want me to pull out the list? Because I have a list of guys that are free agents right now in the wide receiver market.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I made my own list just of who I was interested in, and just why. But sure, if you want to pull it up, I'll just go down my list anyway. But it's good to have it visualized in front of us. Maybe
we have a visual. Yeah. Might as well use the visual. Is this a good enough visual? Is yours better than mine or worse than mine?
I mean, it's not, it's not on a website. It's just notes I have. So.
Okay.
But just kind of going down the line here. I mean, next up, for me, Hunter Renfrow, he's not a wide receiver 2, in my opinion. He's fallen off over the last 2 seasons. But, if you look at, he did have a really good season 2 years ago, but, he's had more bad seasons than good seasons, I believe. He's interesting though, just because, Peyton Manning always had, and Tom Brady too, they always had those little kind of, Wes Welker type guys that they could kind of throw to, running across the middle, first down machines. Might not be a bad addition, but it's not our answer.
Small, quick white guy. Can I say that or no?
Yeah, go for it. I mean, that's pretty much it.
Designated white guy in the group, I will say that. Yes, they always had a small white guy. Yes.
Yeah. Allen Robinson. He's getting old, and he's absolutely useless if he doesn't get 150 targets. It's crazy. If you look at his stats, he's only ever produced if he gets at least 150 targets. If he gets anything under 150 targets, he's an absolute waste of time. And we already got Garrett pushing 150, 160 targets. So, we're not going to be having two players on the team getting that many, Aaron Rodgers targets. And plus, I don't want to trust that guy. Michael Gallup sucks. Tyler Boyd, solid, not what you want for a wide receiver 2. Michael Thomas, always hurt. Now, here are the 2 names that really, get to your question, right, about guys that kind of jump out to me that I think, haven't really necessarily gotten a fair shot and, could, kind of have the physicality to be, something special with the elevation of Aaron Rodgers as their QB. First name is Josh Reynolds. It's hard to put him as a wide receiver 2, but, he's a nice big target, 6'2", 6'3", whatever. He seems to profile, again, more like a wide receiver 3 through 5. But, again, nice big target, was solid, on Detroit. I like him. And another one is a sneaky one, my kind of like sleeper here, Isaiah Hodgins. So Isaiah Hodgins, he's 6'4". He's pretty fast, but he's got a nose for the end zone. There was a stretch there about a year ago where he got traded to the Giants, and the last kind of in the middle season, and then right after he got traded, and when they started giving him some targets, he had a touchdown per game for 4 out of their last 5 games in a row. And he was very much underutilized by both the Bills and the Giants. Like they never really gave him a fair shot. He didn't really get to benefit from having Josh Allen throw to him. And then his next best quarterback is Daniel Jones, which is where he really got some looks, but the Giants don't throw that much. He wasn't their number one guy. Daniel Jones kind of sucks. The Giants kind of suck, so all that considered, I think a nice tall guy like that, and you could get him for absolutely dirt cheap. I think you take a chance on a guy like that, throw him in the roster, and then we, maybe look towards the draft, or maybe we get one of those other, top picks, on top of it. But that's kind of my assessment of who. And anyone else I didn't mention, I don't know if I'm really interested in.
Yeah, I forgot. What did you say about Tyler Boyd? Were you interested?
Yeah, Tyler Boyd. I said he's solid, but he's just not what I look at as a wide receiver 2, because we're looking for a wide receiver 2 right now.
I mean, I don't know if you can really say that about Tyler Boyd, because I mean, like I think he's got enough of a profile that kind of can fill that role. I mean, like when they drafted Joe Burrow, right, and this is before Chase was around, he was the number 2. Actually, he was the number 1, right, because Higgins was a rookie that year, and then he elevated himself, right, by showing off that he's pretty good, right. So like that, I think Boyd can fill it too, but I don't think you want it to be your 2, right?
Sure.
I think you could do better than that. But let's just say this hypothetically, because right now, I believe there's a couple teams that are checking out Mike Williams, right? And one of them is also the Steelers now, because they basically lost Deontay Johnson, and I guess they're not bringing back Allen Robinson, which is just amazing that they had both of them, right? But Boyd is also a name that is circulating in their waters too. So like you might lose to the Steelers on Mike Williams hypothetically, and also they have a lot of value now with the Russell Wilson contract they got, right? So they have a little flexibility there, right? But I don't know if the numbers make sense. Bring in Boyd, right, and then maybe also shore up again on the offensive line one more piece, so that 10th pick, when we'll get into that strategy talk, is super flexible at that point, right?
Yeah. So with wide receiver, just kind of, continuing on with wide receiver, it's just a super important position, I think, right now to nail, just because of the fact that, look at the Bengals, back when they went to the Super Bowl, the Bengals really had a terrible O-line, but they were able to, get to the Super Bowl just by having 2 really stud wide receivers, and if you really nail that wide receiver 2, that elevates the O-line, and that elevates what you're able to do, and that elevates, kind of the pressure on that O-line, because, remember, even if we do nail every single, position in the O-line, we do well. We still have Keith Carter as our O-line coach. We still have Nathaniel Hackett as our coordinator. We yes, Aaron Rodgers is back, but things could still be a little bit shaky, at least at first, with the O-line, even if we do get great talent there, just because leadership is, a little bit lacking, in my opinion. So I think you want to cover as many bases as possible. And by nailing down a wide receiver and O-line with as good of a wide receiver 2 as you possibly can get, I think that's, kind of the route you got to go. And I think just with, we'll talk about it more and then when we get to the draft, but I just think Jody, just based on his style, I think he's going to look to shore up wide receiver 2 maybe in the draft, just because that's probably the most expensive position for him to nail outside of the draft.
Go ahead, Adnan.
I think when you look at it, first to address Boyd, I would be totally happy with Boyd in a combination of him and a guy like Josh Reynolds or DJ Chark, right? I think you do have to bring 2 receivers in no matter how you do it. Because again, I'm not trusting Allen Lazard. I don't care if Aaron Rodgers is his quarterback. I'm not going to trust him to be productive, for this team until we see it game in and game out. So I think that's kind of the big thing, and I think you can do it a combination with either signing 2 guys or signing 1, taking someone in the draft, right? And I think, like we discussed, shoring up the offensive line the way that they did gives them a lot of flexibility at 10, which we'll get into. But I just think that you got to try to find a way to sign one of these receivers, even if it isn't a wide receiver 2, right? Even if you sign a Chark or a again, Josh Reynolds, somebody like that, guys that can come in and produce. They're not going to produce at a Garrett Wilson level, but they'll produce at a level higher than Allen Lazard. So that's kind of what I'm looking at just to wrap up the wide receiver position for me is just they got to bring somebody in. And I think most of the names that we mentioned would be better than Alan Lazard. And I think that's what we have to look at is raising the overall talent level of the room. As opposed to saying we need to get a stud number 2, right? If you get Mike Williams, that raises the overall talent level. You had a receiver in the draft, that raises the talent level even higher. So I think we have to look at raising the talent level overall as opposed to just saying, let's get the best receiver we can. So that's kind of how I view the wide receiver position, and it's going to be fascinating to see how, they handle it starting tomorrow.
Question for you guys. Because obviously there's also other news in the Jets world with Corey Davis coming out of retirement, off the retirement list, right? And a free agent. Are we all a no on Corey Davis?
I'm a no. I think also Corey Davis had mentioned, or I had heard talk that he wanted to be somewhere closer to where his family was in Tennessee. So I think he doesn't even necessarily want to be here per se. But it's a no for me. Corey Davis, can't last the whole season. He hasn't in a very long time. He's got the talent, first round talent level, but he's just hasn't ever panned out to be like that first round producer, except for maybe a couple seasons, like 1 or 2 seasons. And, he was clutching a couple games for us, but I think he only played 55% of his total possible games as a Jet, if I remember on my last count. And we don't need that. We need someone who we can count on and trust, which is why, Mike Williams is a little bit shaky for me too, especially at that price tag. No, it's a no for me for Corey Davis.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And I think it's telling kind of how the Jets look at it as well, because they did release him, right? Like if they wanted him on this team, they still retained his rights. They could have kept him, reworked the contract. So I don't think they want him. I don't think he wants to be in New York. The Jets did him a solid, and good on them for doing that with, him having to leave last season. But yeah, I definitely do not want him back on this team. I think they can do exponentially better than a Corey Davis.
Okay.
What about you, John? What about you, John?
I'm kind of the same way on that. Okay. It sucks because I think, he was super talented coming out of college.
Yeah.
He was off the board that year. He was 5th overall or 6th overall, one of those two.
Yeah, 5th overall.
5th overall, yeah. And his only season that really warranted was the last year in Tennessee where, basically got him his payday, right? And it was actually a reasonable contract at the time to really think about it, just considering what free agent wide receivers went off the board that year. For context, Kenny Golladay went for 4 for 72 that year. And the Jets got a whole lot more out of Corey Davis than they did Kenny Golladay and the Giants, right? So I guess I could say fuck the Giants. Why not? Maybe I'll add it to the end of the whole thing, although we do have a large New York market. But all right, what about, I'm going to say MVS right now, because he's also a free agent. You guys are also a no on him, even if it's cheap as a wide receiver 4.
Yeah, absolutely not. I mean, we already have Lazard, right? It's the same guy. I know he's faster, but yeah, I'm a hard no on him as well. I'd rather have Corey Davis back to be totally honest. If you gave me the choice, but yeah, I'm a definite no on him.
Yeah, I like Boyd, Reynolds, Hodgins before MVS. MVS has showed us what he is, and I believe what he showed us, which is not good.
Yeah.
How about, I'm going to throw another name out there, Braxton Berrios as a wide receiver 4 beyond.
I think he re-signed with Miami.
Yeah, he re-signed.
Okay, fair enough. Oh, yeah, he's not on this list anymore. That makes sense. Okay, we also got Byron Pringle. That's an interesting name too.
That is an interesting one.
I mean, he's just like one of those guys that for some reason is always open, but then you look at his season and he has like 430 yards. But I feel like, I would take him over Lazard. Like there aren't too many receivers, I wouldn't take over Alan Lazard, right? So, if you're telling me that he's coming in to be the wide receiver 4, that pushes Lazard to wide receiver 5, then you're going to have kind of an interesting conversation at the back end of the wide receiver room with Gibson and Brownlee. But I think that's, that is what it is. I
think you got to see 1 year of Alan Lazard with Rodgers. I think you do.
I think done with him.
I know you're done with him, but once again, like it's not like he sucked when he was with Aaron Rodgers. He was always getting better with Aaron Rodgers, right? And it is different having Aaron Rodgers throw you the ball than Zach Wilson, who won't put in the same spot as Aaron Rodgers and also has a lot more zip to it, right? And also Rodgers telling you how to adjust the line, the play, right? So I think everything's a little bit different, which is why I still, even though like I still kind of give him a pass. Although it is a little discouraging that Izzy said that he's the slowest driver on the team.
Right. I agree that tells me a lot. But I want to echo something that Monty has said before, right? Like if you need a Hall of Fame quarterback to be functional, you aren't good at your job. I'm sorry.
Correct.
He was a veteran receiver on this team. They needed him to step up, and he didn't. Right? So to me, like, I get it, man. Everybody would be better with Aaron Rodgers, but if you're an NFL receiver, you have to be functional no matter who your quarterback is. And I just don't buy that. But
also remind you that the offensive line was not functional given that all the injuries that they had too. So it's two of the three pieces, right? That was not functional here, right? So like that is why like I'm a little hesitant, right? Especially since there were points of the season when like the O-line kind of got settled down, especially when the O-line got settled down, which is that Kansas City, Denver stretch, right? That those and the O-line was actually fine in the New England game. It's just that like nothing worked out because it was raining and Belichick can do things like Belichick, right? It just like all right. So just to be fair, right? That stretch of Kansas City and Denver. Offense is moving just fine, also without Aaron Rodgers. So like I don't know. Like I think you're right. Yes, it's no excuse. It's an excuse, right? That's what I'm giving him, right? But I think that's just the hesitancy there for me on Alan Lazard. I kind of just want to see him prove people wrong, and I'm waiting for the line on his over under receiving yards because I'm just gonna hit the over because it's gonna be like really really low. So
yeah, you're gonna crush that bet for sure.
Yeah, well maybe not. You know.
I think so. I'm on the maybe not, but
I've lost money before. Yeah, last year's Jets Super Bowl bets, I think I had to give out $250 on that. But like the winning potential was ridiculous. Like I would have basically just been like, I don't know, like I guess I can say it because there's no last name here, right? But like I would have gone on a bender, right? Could have gone on a bender, right?
Yeah.
And that would have been totally fine financially for a little bit. Okay, so what about, do we also look at the offensive line market since that is still, I guess, in play because there's only really a couple names that are, you know, they're names that are still out there, mind you, right? Mm-hmm. Most of them on the exterior, not so much in the interior, but you know, when you look at this offensive line and you look at the contracts that are outstanding, right? Let's just say beyond this year, right? Tackle, Moses is 1 year. Tyron Smith, 1 year. ABT is going to his final year before the 5th-year option, which I think is just a sure thing at this point, right? Simpson is 2 years, right? Tippmann is 3 more years. And I guess Carter Warren, Wes. There's not a lot. There's not a lot of sustainability with the contract
not a lot of longevity. Yeah.
So so which makes me kind of lean towards offensive line being in the draft because there's just not that much left there. But do you guys want to look at the list of offensive linemen that are still available right now?
Yeah, let's take a look.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting conversation.
Yeah. Okay, let's see what I got. Yep, I got the right one. Okay, so here's some familiar names: Bakhtiari, the beer chugger, and Lakin. I don't know who the hell Charlie Leno is. Oh wait, no, we do know. Don't want to be part of that. Andrews Pete used to be great, and he really fell off. White hair. Okay, Dwayne Brown, another Jet. That's great.
Get him out of here.
Diller.
I feel a lot better about Bakhtiari now that we're solidified at line, but to your point, he doesn't solve anything for us for our long-term discussion. Yeah. However, I am a lot more open now to Bakhtiari for like $3 million. And, and then we still on top of that bring in, maybe a, someone, who can play multiple positions on the line or someone who's a tackle that's developmental. Imagine you're a young tackle, you come on the team and Bakhtiari and Tyron Smith are on the team. Like he's no bet. Like you have to turn into an absolute monster. And then there's our 10-year tackle.
Wow. Vitai's a free agent now too.
Yeah. And I think like looking at,
is that right? This right. Okay. Donovan Smith is still out there, which he'd want to be a starter, right? So that's a no, but Be interesting if his name sticks around for a long time, and so does Bakhtiari. Maybe they sign him like late. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
After the draft, right? I just like this last name, Questenberry. Con McGovern, you might want to just bring him back as depth, right?
Yeah, he's a guy I think you bring him back. He
knows the system. He knows us.
He knows everything. He can solidify the all three interior positions.
I'm okay with that.
So having him and Wes would be, I think really good depth on the interior.
What about Greg Van Roten? That's interesting too. Although he was supposed to get a lot, actually. This is like he was on our top 10 list, I guess, right? Yeah. We were like thinking like it was okay for the value, right? It was definitely under $5 million, but that's interesting that he's still there.
He's still out there, yeah.
Chuma Adogo, man, what a fucking name that is.
maybe the need after those guys. Remember a bunch of all the top guards flew off the board immediately, and then since then it's been quiet in the interior line market. Maybe there's just not a big need from other teams right now at this particular moment. Maybe they're waiting until after the draft.
I mean, Zeitler is still there, which is insane to me.
Yeah, that one's peculiar. Also, Trenton Brown is out there too, which is really interesting. I don't know. And obviously the big one before the ACL injury was Connor Williams. I thought that was going to really be something, right? But it's funny. I don't think they could sign a big name for tackle unless it's Bach for cheap, right? Mm-hmm. So like you probably go cheap here, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, you probably just go cheap here and just hope for the best, right?
I'm telling you, deep, good. That's got to be our, we got to just get, again, typical Joe Douglas philosophy, right player, right price. It's got to be, it's got to be someone that we can bring in for the cheap that has a good, history and background to him.
Yeah. Okay, so I guess from here we can kind of go into the discussion about just the overall state of the Jets roster right now and kind of give our thoughts on we've kind of been doing it, right?
Doing that, yeah.
Yeah, but all right, so let's just say hypothetically, right? Hypothetically, there's no draft and there's no more free agency. Or actually, there is a draft. There's always going to be a draft, right? But there's no more free agency, right? And they pull no other moves, right? And I guess they can do so much more flexibility with that, extend Reed, Franklin Myers maybe, or just do a whole bunch of things, right? But would this team today, knowing that the draft is coming up, and I guess the draft would have to default to picking wide receiver at this point, is it enough to do what we wanted to do, which is the Super Bowl?
As of today.
Yeah.
With just the draft, I will say not yet, not quite. Again, I've been harping on this for a while. I want to see some leadership changes. I don't think we have the leadership to get us through to a Super Bowl. Salah's great, but I just could see him being in over his head versus a guy like, like Shanahan or, a guy like Andy Reid. Like he could definitely get out coached. We still have freaking Hackett the Hack. We still have Keith Carter, who's got a terrible reputation, if you really read into him. I want to see some of that. I want to see some changes there. Roster wise, I think we're close. I think we'll see after the draft kind of where we're at. I think we may still need to make a couple acquisitions to shore up some holes after the draft. I think we're close, but no, I don't think we're quite there yet.
Yeah, what I will say though, as of this second, in my opinion, the Jets are the best team in the AFC East. They're better than Buffalo. They're better than Miami. They're better than the Patriots. So, I think this team as currently constituted is, again, the best team in the AFC East, and that would make them a top 4 team in the AFC, right? So I think with that said, is there work on the roster to be done? Yes. But I would also say in regards to the coaching staff, right? I mean, look, I get the concerns, but I think at this point, obviously there aren't going to be any changes unless somebody walks away willingly, right? This is our coaching staff. So this is what we have to look at, and I think I would say from Salah's perspective.
Well, actually, no, just to butt in real quick, because remember, it's been talked about and it's been said, it's been very kind of clear that they've said that they were looking to bring in help for Hackett with regard to possibly a play caller, something like that, something where he could get an assistance, in terms of dealing with the offense, and that he wouldn't just be like the only guy. So that is one thing that was kind of talked about and has been, kind of talked about for a while. But yes, for the, offensive line, running back, all those other coaches and assistants, yes, I do agree. But I think they are still looking to potentially bring someone in to assist with offensive, play calling.
I don't
Gates coaching high school football.
I don't know if they're gonna bring in an outside play caller, right? I think what they're looking at is making this more of a collaborative effort. But with all of that said, I think like when you look at Saleh and you look at his progression as a head coach, I'm telling you, man, I really, really believe he's gonna be a much different coach when you can actually trust the offense, right? I mean, think about what his mental state must be like. I mean, he literally came out and said before the Raiders game, it's a race to 17, right? Because he doesn't trust the offense. And when you can't trust half of your team, that really impacts what you can do as a coach. I think we're going to see a completely different guy, knowing that, Rodgers is there to kind of pilot the offense. I think you're going to see a different guy. Also, one of the things that I think these headphones are so annoying. One of the things that I also think is on the defensive side of the ball, especially from a coaching perspective, I think there's another level this defense can get to, right? Because now maybe they can be a little bit more aggressive, knowing that we don't have to, sit back and not make a mistake, right? Yeah. You might see Sauce have a couple of interceptions this season because he'll be told, go get the ball, right? You don't have to just let him catch it and make the tackle, because if they score a big play, the game's basically over, right? So having trust in the offense, I think, will really help the entire coaching staff. So no doubt. I'm not as concerned as with the staff as I am, with making sure that the team is healthy, right? Like, that's my biggest concern. Just to talk about a Super Bowl contender, that's kind of how I look at it. But I think they're close. I think they're close after this week. They are the best team in the AFC East, and I think that's a fair statement.
Yeah. I will say the one thing about the defensive aggressiveness, right? Just to kind of comment on that. No one's throwing a Sauce next year. No one. You don't throw the Sauce. That's just kind of rule of thumb right now. You just don't throw the Sauce.
Well, totally fair. And I was just using that as a facetious example, right?
But can we have Sauce shadow a fucking wide receiver one?
That's another thing.
Yeah. Well, let me get back into that real quick. So the way that cornerback strategy is, right? Remember, DJ Reed. The analytics show that DJ Reed can only really play on one side, right? I believe it is
it's the right side of the defense.
Right side of the defense. Because statistically, like, he's not DJ Reed if he has to play on the other side, right? So that is why Sauce is not a traveling cornerback. Sauce is more than capable of doing it. He did in college, right? And clearly the NFL has translated just fine for that guy, right? I mean, he's quite excellent at his job, right? So I think it's just not going to happen. Right? Like they like what they're doing. The advanced stats are always going to say the Jets are the best defense in the league, right? That's why PFF. I mean, say what we will. There's a lot of things that's funky about that website, right? But they've had them as the top-rated defense back-to-back years for a reason, right? The points and the yards obviously won't match, right? Because they're always on the field, right? But obviously, like, some of the more traditional stats are going to start to appear when they have an offense, right? And maybe it's a little bit of a step back because unless Will McDonald just totally fills the hole of Bryce Huff, which I think is possible.
I think it's very possible.
It's possible, which is why I'm wearing my 99, which is not a Will McDonald jersey, but I will work on changing the nameplate on the back at some point. It is actually, I will finally reveal it. It is a Hugh Douglas jersey.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, he was a first round draft pick for the Jets. But yeah, it's the traditional look. And all that. But okay, I guess, now maybe we can go into draft strategies. But before this, I have a video I'd like to share the group. And I have the feeling a lot of people are going to know who this is, but let's just see what the video clip is. You guys ready?
Yeah, let's do it.
Hello there, boys, from Laugh Through the Turbulence, a New York Jets podcast. Can I just say that name is absolutely everything. It's like the Philadelphia Sixers hanging on to trust the process. I love everything about this. By the way, let me remind you that yes, your girl Lisa Ann is right here to have a little chat with you. Now, mind you, when John booked this message, I was supposed to say that I don't like your show, but I like the title so much that before I even got to the notes of writing this about, I was like, Laugh Through the Turbulence is amazing. What a season. I mean, what a preseason for the Jets. The buildup of Aaron Rodgers doing absolutely every New York thing. And then game one. I mean, that was really a tough way to go out. The quarterback carousel has not been pleasant, which gives you a lot of content for this amazing podcast, right? That's what I got to say right there. But the real question is this. Who do you think the Jets will pick at number 10? I mean, I know inquiring minds want to know. Any minds that would listen to Laugh Through the Turbulence podcast, right? All of it. Let's see what they do at pick 10. And eventually, the tides have to turn, even for your beloved New York Jets. As a Dallas Cowboys fan myself, not making it past the first round of the playoffs since 1995, I feel even more of your pain. Because every year we're told we have this great team. Even when they're not injured, they just don't play well. It's part of the love of the sport. But for all of you, I'm going to listen to your podcast now, so I can't say I hate it. I'm going to find it. And I'm going to subscribe to it, and I'm going to review it, say wonderfully nice things. Aww. Let's hope we both have a better season next year.
Woo! Lisa Ann likes the name I came up with. Woo!
Yeah. Do we know her from somewhere?
Take a shot.
Yeah, she's she has fantasy football. She's into sports gambling, so she does a lot in the football community. So that's kind of, I bet, where we all know her from. I don't think she does anything else other than that.
Yeah, not at all.
All right, so. Wait,
thank you, Lisa Ann.
But no, she was just really awesome. Yeah, we're gonna try and work on getting her on at some point, maybe after the draft. And we sure tried for this round because Tyron Smith was a Cowboy, and she can give us her thoughts about it. Yeah, but all right. So I guess that goes into pick 10 strategy, right? Or strategies, right? Based on what's gone on, right? What do you think is the move right now? And I guess there's really 3 options, or I guess let's say I'm gonna give you 5 options, and you're gonna rank them, right?
Mm-hmm.
Draft a left tackle or offensive lineman of some sorts, right? Draft a wide receiver. Draft Brock Bowers, or just draft another edge guy.
So for me, I think there are so many directions you can go with 10, right? There's so many directions. Which, again, like I said earlier, it's what made shoring up the offensive line, such a big deal. I think at 10, my preference, in all honesty, and this goes back to something Monty said a little bit earlier, is to trade down, see if you can recoup a second rounder, and then draft one of those more raw offensive tackles like Mims or Guyton. Because like you said, Monty, sitting behind, Tyron Smith and Morgan Moses at least, and if they bring in Bakhtiari, you got your 10-year tackle of the future waiting in the wings, and then you also got you have 4/5 of your offensive line set going into 2025, right? So I think that's the optimal play, and then you can go receiver in the second round, and then just go from there. So that would be my preference. If a trade down isn't possible, I really still think, you gotta go tackle, in my opinion, because, if everything breaks right, regardless of what happens this season, as long as he's healthy, you may have Aaron Rodgers back next season, and you want to be able to protect him without having to break the bank and without having to rely on Moses and Smith, who will be another year older. Right. So I really think tackle is the move at 10, but my preference is to trade down, try to pick up another second rounder. If you can't do that, a third rounder, and then go ahead and go from there. So that would be kind of how I would attack the 10th pick.
Yeah. So, out of the options that you gave there, hang on, my camera's slowing down a little bit for some reason. Give me a second here. All right.
Okay, great contribution.
Yeah. Yeah. Sorry about that. Shut the hell up, John. Yeah. So at that, based on kind of your limited options there that you gave us without mentioning trading down, I like Brock Bowers followed by a depth tackle, and then possibly a guard, after that. But for the most part, for me, it's trade down. Trade down. The more I kind of look it over and I read it through, especially with Joe Douglas being, kind of Joe Douglas and how he's able to, have that vision to pull talent and, what he's been able to do when he has a full, cohort of draft picks, at his disposal. I trust his ability to pull talent out of the second round. So if we drop back in the first, we're still getting a solid first round talent. And I still think that Joe D is going to take the best available who will likely pan out. And then in the second round, we're still getting a good solid guy. Third round is when you start to just kind of be, you're kind of throwing darts still. I mean, third rounders can pan out, but it really, the drop off there is kind of significant in my opinion. So, I really want us to have 2 picks in the first 2 rounds as opposed to the, just having the 1 there and then skipping and then going to 3. I don't like that for us. So, trade back, get, maybe, Brian, what's his name? Brian Thomas Jr., someone like that. Or maybe we can get, someone I really like, who I hope doesn't shoot up the boards, Troy Fatanu. That guy can play every position on the line pretty much. He's solid. And then maybe we take a wide receiver in round 2 because I trust Joe D's ability to at least get us a wide receiver 2 out of round 2. And then maybe we get like a Tyler Boyd or we get like a Josh Reynolds or we get like a, someone else, along the way. But, it all depends on how this Mike Williams visit goes, here coming up.
And I think, Monty, to add to that, I think this draft is so deep in the first 2 to 3 rounds. I think it's almost impossible to mess it up. Right, because the needs that they have line up exactly with the strengths of this draft. Right, wide receiver, tackle. So in the first 2 rounds, man, it's virtually impossible to mess it up. And if it doesn't work out, I don't think you'll be able to look at Douglas and be like, well, you picked the wrong guy, right? Like you could say with other picks. So I do think this is a really strong draft, and I think Jets are going to come away with, to be honest, either a tackle of the future, a day 1 plug and play wide receiver, things to that effect. So I'm definitely, excited with the options they have.
Yeah, I think it's going to end up being a stand pat, I think, at this point. I would love to trade back, right? But the problem is 10 isn't high enough to really warrant a trade up to, right? Which is the unfortunate thing. Unless the board shakes up the way perfectly, right? I probably should have also added trade up as an option just because there's 2 names and there, if you did get one of those 2 names, and you guys know what I'm talking about, it's Joe Alt or Marvin Harrison Jr., right? Either one would be like, oh my God. If somehow one of them, if let's just say the way the draft's going to go, right? Chicago, since they trade away Fields, it's going to be Caleb or some quarterback, right? Mm-hmm. Washington has no quarterback, so what do you think they're going to do?
They're going to get quarterback too.
Right. Do you think New England's going to pass on a quarterback?
They need a quarterback too.
They need a quarterback too. Kyler's going to stay in Arizona, so that's the first non-quarterback off the board.
And what do they need,
Wide receiver right now.
Yeah, I mean,
they need targets.
I feel like
I would imagine they get Marvin Harrison Jr.
Yeah, right. and I feel like that's like moving up to get Marvin Harrison. Not to cut you off, John. That's going to cost way too much, right? I think it's going to be very difficult to move to get him.
Move, right?
But, maybe it might just be mortgaging the future, which I'm okay with. If it means Marvin Harrison Jr., his dad's pretty good at football. That's pretty good stock that he's coming from. He's an absolute
was pretty
unit.
good at football.
Absolute unit in college. It's worth and we're all in the year. I'm okay with mortgaging the future a little bit for someone like that.
And just to continue the draft, right? The next pick is 5. Chargers. What do they need right now?
They need a receiver, man.
They need a receiver. Keenan Allen's gone. Which side note, interestingly enough, we were in on Keenan Allen. That's all the reports I've read from ESPN, New York Post, a bunch of different outlets have all reported that, we had conversations with Keenan Allen's camp. Keenan Allen was considering us too. It wasn't like a long, deep consideration because obviously he went where he went, but we were in play. So, we are kind of still making those moves, that could have been a possibility.
That would have been really awesome if it did happen. Because, I mean, could you argue this, right? A combination of Garrett Wilson, Keenan Allen would be the best footwork team on the planet.
Yeah, even if you only get Keenan Allen for 10 games.
Yeah. It just didn't happen. I mean, I'm going to just say this loud and clear. We don't know everything that goes on in these back offices, right? It's not like Joe Douglas is falling asleep at the wheel, right? Because I remember the first early part of free agency, everyone was like, Joe's at the sleep at the wheel. He doesn't realize daylight savings happened or whatever. So I think, and even we were sending out the little images of that shit. I think we did the video with the Family Guy, Joe Douglas early in free agency, thought that was funny. But anyway, to continue with the draft order, 6 is going to be the Giants. I think they should stick with Daniel Jones and just get a wide receiver because I guess the 4th best quarterback is going to be their option, J.J. McCarthy. That's what it sounds like, right? But let's say it's a quarterback, right? Then Tennessee, 7. What do they need?
That's alt.
That's all.
Right.
Exactly. Yeah. Okay. Then you got Atlanta. What does Atlanta need?
I think that's going to be the first defensive player off the board.
I
right?
agree.
Because I think they need pass rusher. Yeah.
I think Dallas Turner's the guy, and that's it, right? Okay, then back to Chicago at 9. What do they want at that point?
Well, that's the interesting spot, right? Because if someone wants to get up to 9 to draft, Ole or one of the tackles, they're going to jump over the Jets. That's why 9 worries me with a trade out. Unless someone comes up to get Odunze, then you have, your pick of every tackle except alt. So I think 9 is where it's really going to impact the Jets the most because we have no idea what the Bears are going to do with that pick.
I think they're going to do offensive line as it stands right now if nothing moves around.
Yeah.
Because, that was the one thing about the Keenan Allen trade that hurt me the most was just knowing that it would kind of solidify what the Bears were going to do. Right. But in the end, maybe it does help us a little bit, right? Because actually, here's interesting. Bears could draft Bowers in theory. That could be the first team to go tight end.
They could, but they just paid Kmet, right? Are they going to?
Yeah, Kmet's not bad.
He's a top 10 tight end, right? And bad. So I just don't
With a good QB, he could have top 10 talent potential.
Absolutely, and I don't think you doubled down on a tight end there. You just paid him.
All right, I'm going to list 10 tight ends. I'm going to go.
He's not a top 10 proven.
No, I'm not going. I'm going to say no. Top 10. All right, let's just say this. I'm going to name a guy, and it's going to be Kmet or him, and you're going to say who, right? All right, Travis Kelce.
Obviously, Kelce.
Kittle.
I don't know, man. Kittle's always hurt.
Shut the fuck up. Okay.
No. Listen,
it's Kittle. Kittle's the best.
You can't just definitively say that, John. He's always hurt. He didn't show up in the Super Bowl. What are we talking about here?
No, if he's on the field, it's Kittle.
Right, if he's on the field.
Really well. Kittle blocks.
That's the other thing with Kittle. It's like Kittle is another blocker.
I'm not going to say definitively, but I'll give it to you. Okay, Kittle too.
I don't think Kmet blocks as good as Kittle.
Okay.
That's fair. I agree there. That's fair.
TJ Hawkinson.
Yeah, Tej.
Okay. I'm gonna throw Laporta in there too for the hell
of it. 100% Laporta. I take Laporta.
Laporta's a stud. Come on.
I'm also gonna throw in Dalton Kincaid since we're gonna go rookies real quick.
Ooh,
that's a tough one.
Really good. He's really good.
He's very good.
That's still a tough one, but I think.
All right, fine. Let's just say no.
Okay.
Right. Mark Andrews.
Yes.
Okay. Why don't we throw in Darren Waller since that's
he retired name. And no. He doesn't get on the field.
Yeah,
Dallas
he
Goedert.
can't stay on the field.
Dallas Goedert.
I think
Yeah,
it's close.
see, that's close for me. That's
Yeah,
close for me.
That's close for me.
That's close for me. That's a
Close for you?
because
100%.
look who Goddard plays with and what team he plays on versus what Komet has had.
He's still
Who's
really
Komet
good.
been? Who's
Goddard's really good.
Who's Komet had throwing him the ball? Who?
I
What team?
understand, but Goddard.
Bears are garbage.
All right, I'm gonna get
Yeah.
since I gave you two names there that we guys were 50-50 on. I'm gonna give you a half and half. Right, so that's 6.
Okay.
The half and half. All right. Kyle Pitts.
Yeah, I mean, talent-wise, I think he's better than Komet. Hasn't
Okay.
shown it, but talent-wise, I think he could be the most talented tight end in football, just pound for pound.
Yeah. All right. Let's see. I'm gonna call Dalton Schultz.
That's close for me. That's
Schultz.
close, man. You can't just definitively say that, right?
I don't know because I mean
I'm getting at.
it's like Schultz and Goddard and Komet. They're kind of like same ish.
Yeah, that's the thing.
Talent wise, like that's not.
A lot
They're
of these
not
guys
good
are-
enough for me to like. Yeah. So
All right.
Yeah.
I'll end it at this. Komet, borderline. All right. Here's a good one.
yeah.
Conklin. Tyler Conklin. Yeah.
Or Komet.
Yeah.
No, Komet.
Yeah, 100%.
Conklin is good, but
Conklin's at
Conklin's
the same situation though.
Conklin's like a top 15, top 13, top 12 ish guy.
Did you not
Komet, I think is a solid top 10 talent wise.
That's what I'm saying.
If he had a cube, if he like Komet with Rodgers versus Conklin with Rodgers, could be Komet.
100%.
Now Brock Bowers or Komet. You're gonna like
Obviously,
if,
Bowers.
Thank you.
Yeah, but again,
Saying,
at this,
team that's in play to take Bowers. The first one is Chicago, I think. Although LA Chargers could be a thing because that looks like it's trying to become a run first team.
see, that's an interesting one too, right? Because like Harbaugh's a nut job. Like he could go tight end there, right? So that's
Yeah.
an interesting one, which would force a receiver
Oh my
to drop
God, double
down.
tight end, double
You
tight
know?
end with Bowers and Andrews with Lamar. Jesus Christ.
I think
You know what's an interesting little point there is when Rodgers had his MVP season,
Which one?
The most recent one. I'm gonna
Okay.
just talk.
I'm
I'm gonna
gonna-
talk about.
I'm
I'm gonna just talk about the most recent, obviously, because that's most relevant in my opinion. His top. I think his number 2 target was Robert Tonyan, who caught 52 out of 59 passes for 11 touchdowns, top 5 touchdown scorer in the league that year. And it wasn't because Robert Tonyan is amazing. Aaron Rodgers with a even half decent tight end can be pretty deadly. And with someone like Bowers, with Rodgers throwing him the ball, might be a very, very special. It might be like some Jimmy Graham and fucking Drew Brees shit.
Yeah. All right, real quick on the tight ends, Pat Freiermuth or Komet?
I think that's a toss-up. I
Evan
think
Ingram.
Freiermuth is.
Actually, no, I take that back. I like Freiermuth a lot.
There you go.
I do
Evan
like
Ingram.
Freiermuth a lot. That's close for me as well. Like
That's another toss-up.
Yeah, I think you could say definitively, yeah, there are 5 or 6 guys that are head and shoulders better than Komet, right? But after that,
Njoku.
he had one good season, right? I mean, let's see.
Njoku from last season, yes. Njoku from any time before,
Yeah, like you
Komet.
gotta see more from him, right? And this is my whole point, though, John, is that like after the 5 or 6 definitive guys, a lot of these guys are just toss-ups.
Yeah,
right.
The one thing that Njoku though has is that his best season was with like his arguably worst QB play or some of his worst QB play. So Njoku is on the rise. I think talent wise, he might be physical talent, possibly better than Komet. But again, like you said, a lot of this is once you get past that top 5, these guys are so close at tight end. It's like, the number 7 can be the number 15 one year, the number 8 could be the number 11 one year, the number 13 can be the number 9. It's not, it's all just a toss.
I will say this too: Chicago could end up going defense.
That's what I'm thinking as well.
They love defense. They usually love defense in Chicago. They're a little like us in that regard.
Byron Murphy Am I getting that right? From Texas? Is that the D tackle from Texas? Byron
Yeah,
Murphy?
yeah.
Yeah, he's kind of a freak. That's
Yeah,
kind of a freak.
and I think I mean that's fair as well, right? And that would help the Jets. Like,
Oh, you know,
if
Salah's
8 and
wishing
9
he got Byron Murphy.
yeah,
I know.
Salah's watching that tape, boy.
yeah, if 8 and 9 are defense, that's exactly what the Jets want, right? Because that then leaves, if it goes the way that we said, and then 8 and 9 are defense, that does leave Bowers, Odunze, all the tackles except Alt, a trade down possibility. So if it fell the way that we just said it, that's pretty much optimal for the Jets. I feel like, when you look at a guy like Alt and you look at a guy like Marvin Harrison, forget about the cost to trade up and mortgaging the future. Like, are any of those teams, are the Cardinals going to say, yeah, we're good on passing on Marvin Harrison Jr., right?
Probably not.
Are the Titans going to say, yeah, we'll trade you 8, so you can get Joe?
So you can get the a generational
7,
talent
right?
at O-line, and we can't. Yeah, I get it.
Exactly, because I think the point also is that, I feel like there's a subsect of Jet fans that feel like whoever you want, you just call and say, we want them. And they're like, sure, here you go. Take our best player. Take our top 5 draft pick, right? You need people to be willing to trade. And I just don't know if there will be people willing to trade.
Odunze or Bowers, real quick.
Based on need, receiver.
That's so tough for me. Yeah, I would probably go Odunze. But God,
I like Bowers better though. I like Bowers as a talent.
I know. It's such a tough. Is Conklin up after this season?
Yes, he is.
Well, that's kind of the
Eddie Boa, who they also re-signed to restricted free.
Yeah, I mean that's a depth signing, but yeah, I Bowers is just so tantalizing, man. Especially if you get Mike Williams and maybe add another receiver. I don't know how you can pass him up. It would be very hard to.
It would be very difficult too.
Just having that guy staring you in the face at 10.
Okay.
That would be.
Let me do this real quick.
You think Buffalo's kicking themselves for trading up for Kincaid when Bowers is in this draft?
No,
because they're picking
last year's draft was not a good draft, right?
Yeah.
To be totally honest. They just didn't. I mean, it was honestly the pick itself was a little strange because they had just paid Knox, right?
Right.
Like, that was
and they traded up for it. That was if they had just gotten it, it would have been okay.
And the separation between him and Laporta wasn't really that much going into the draft. Let's just say that. And Laporta ended up having the better year because the Lions just really were running that offense so perfectly last year,
Absolutely.
right? So, and also until Ken Dorsey, got fired and Joe Brady stepped in, everything kind of changed a little bit, right? So who knows what after next year, I would actually be like, all right, if you do fantasy, right? And I know I hate talking about fantasy football at this time of the year, but that would be an interesting name to draft in fantasy, Kincaid next year, depending on where he's.
Oh yeah, I picked him up last year. He did well for me in that little stretch where Dawson Knox was.
All right, but here's a question for you, right? Let's just say the draft falls the way it kind of does in Tennessee. And actually, that's the one thing I want to see in free agency leading up to it. I want to see Tennessee get some more offensive linemen right now. I really do. I really do.
Yeah, I just don't think
I want to see him get Trent Brown. I want to see him get Brown. I don't want to see him get Zeitler. I want to see them get all those guys, right? So this way, Alt becomes a possibility for us at times.
Yeah, but I just don't think those guys that they sign will make them say we're set at tackle. We're not going to take one of the best tackle prospects in the last 5 to 7 years.
Yeah, that's really
what
hard.
I mean. I think it's
really
very hard to turn that down.
It's totally fair, but it's interesting in itself, right? Just because, it would just be. I mean, just kind of give you an idea. Titans defense last year was, and maybe they go defense. Who knows? They were not a good defense last year. By PFF standards, they were the 29th ranked defense last year. So maybe they go defense. That would be really.
I mean, listen, I would love that, right? Because if they go defense, then I think you can move up to Atlanta's spot. Because they don't need a tackle, right? And if they can move down and pick up an extra pick, just a couple of spots for the Jets to secure Alt, that would be, that would be amazing.
That would be huge. It's maybe trade up is interesting here, but I think the only the name, the non QB name that is off the board, no question, that we have no livable shot at, is Marvin Harrison Jr. which
Yeah.
sucks.
And,
Imagine that with him and Garrett Wilson. Oh my
yeah,
god.
I mean, they
Christ.
were at Ohio State together for a year. Like they would just be amazing
It wouldn't
together.
even. It wouldn't be fair.
Yeah, and
It wouldn't
I
be
don't think
fair. We'd be the
Neighbors-
Bengals. We'd be the Bengals from a few
Yeah,
years ago.
yeah.
Super
I
Bowl.
don't-
Super
I don't,
Bowl ready.
The
I don't
Bengals
think-
almost pulled out the blockbuster of the season, though, trading for Justin Jefferson. You guys saw that, right? And I think
Yeah.
that would be-
My God,
yeah,
imagine having
that would be-
Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson as your two. Oh my God.
Yeah, I mean that would
maybe
be
LSU.
yeah. But back to what we were talking about. I think that Harrison's off the board for the Jets. I think Neighbors is off the board for the Jets. So I think if you want a wide receiver, your best bet is going to be Odunze, unless Neighbors starts falling and they believe they can trade up to get him. But I don't know if he's going to fall past 5.
Mm-hmm.
Also, interestingly enough, things change. The Vikings made a trade. If they move up into the top 10 for a quarterback, that kind of changes everything as well. Because if they jump the Giants and get to 4 with the Cardinals or whatever they do, if McCarthy isn't there, the Giants may go receiver at 5, right? So there are a lot of things that can still happen that can really shake up how the board is going to fall, but definitely going to be interesting. I could have this conversation forever.
Yeah, question. Do you guys want to see what the draft board looks like right now and kind of show that? And also the point value of the draft board.
Yeah, let's see it.
Why not? Why not? Because I control everything. I am the guy. Go. Okay, so I got this from drafttrek.com, which is says basically it does a point system here for everything. I believe you see it's using their own thing, the Jimmy Johnson valuation model. So which I think is the better model, right? Basically what's interesting is 10 is worth 1,300 points. Obviously 1 is worth 3,000, which is just a lot. The Jets have a cumulative draft capital value of 1,659. So in the event they wanted to trade, let's just say everything they've had to move up for this year, which would get them just to the 6, which is crazy. That's it's really not that much, right?
Yeah, but we'd be, if that were the case, we'd be trading future picks too.
Yeah, and this was our pick too. Just mind you that, but we did trade that for the Rodgers with 490.
So moving up, let's just say Alt is available at 8. So you'd probably have to trade the 1st and the 3rd, and then get
They have another 4th here. Yeah. Oh, we got this irrelevant pick this year.
Yeah. Or so I mean, they'd probably have to trade that 1st and the 3rd, or the 1st and the 2 4ths, and then get a later pick back, or overpay for the slot. But I think getting up to 8 is doable.
Yeah, they could also, in theory, trade at a future pick too.
That's what I was just saying.
Yeah.
I said if we were going to move up, a future pick would have to be involved.
I think what they said was a future pick in the 2nd round, I believe, is worth. I think they said 450. I think that's what it was. To be totally honest, so that would be
13.
You could do that to jump the Giants, I guess, or I guess Tennessee. That might be the move to try and just jump Tennessee at any cost. If they don't sign anything, right?
So what's a future 3rd worth? 150?
Yeah, it's not that much. It diminishes over time.
Gotcha. So I mean, if we could jump Atlanta, that puts us there.
You don't need to though, because Atlanta, Chicago are probably defense, right? Or Bowers.
You gotta jump
here, right? The only team that would want to jump, I guess you have to look at the continuation of this draft board, right? Mm-hmm. So a team here that would want to jump to get a lineman over us or a receiver over us, and it'd be the number 2 or 3 in either position, right? I guess Minnesota, that's interesting that they have 2 now. They want to use that combination of 760 plus 1250 to go jump the Giants for a quarterback. That might be interesting. Actually, that might be what they're thinking right now. They may want to jump the Giants. Arizona would trade. I guarantee Arizona would trade back.
Yeah, but why though? I don't if you have a chance at Marvin.
Trade him. He's traded those picks,
Yeah, but again, if you have a chance to add Marvin Harrison to your roster to pair with Kyler Murray, I just don't know how you turned that down to drop all the way to 10.
Well, here's the thing,
A
though.
lot of help. They need a lot.
I was just gonna say they're not a
Yeah,
Marvin
yeah.
Harrison away from anything.
No.
The Cardinals are not in good shape right now. They need
Yeah,
a lot of positional help, and
and we
I
know
could
that
see
New
it.
England, these three teams are locked at quarterback now. Chicago, Chicago kind of just played their hand.
Yeah, Chicago's locked in. I think Washington's locked in.
Locked in.
New England should be locked in, right, at a quarterback. But, this is smoke screen season, but you have heard, that they may be willing to trade the pick and roll with Brissett, drop down, and then take a developmental quarterback in the first round. Or
That sounds
whatever.
a Belichick move.
I know.
but-
They have Brissett, right? So, but yeah, it'd be funny though if this was just like in Star Wars, the third trilogy, where the Emperor was in the background, even though you thought he was dead.
Yeah.
Strings,
And
yeah.
it's just Belichick is pulling the strings.
Oh my God! And that,
He's like the dark side.
Yeah, he's just in the back in his hoodie, just
Yeah.
directing everything.
in his sleeveless
Totally
stupid
off
hoodie.
comment, but that was the only scene in the final trilogy that I thought was cool, when the Emperor kind of came back and you heard all the voices of like Darth Vader and whatever.
Yeah. No,
That was the only thing that was cool about that whole thing. I got kind of pumped for episode 9, and then episode 9 kicked its pants, basically.
Yeah.
It was one of the worst things I've ever seen in my life. I was so disappointed. But yeah, I don't know. I think maybe he's just stay pat and just take best player available. Yeah, one more wide receiver, and hope to God that Tennessee starts signing some offensive linemen, right?
So if trade back's not an option, where are we all at?
I'm at if trade back isn't an option.
Final choice.
Yeah, I'm going tackle at 10 if trade back isn't an option.
Okay, John.
I think at this point, since we're more all in than I think people think we are, and hypothetically they don't get a big name at wide receiver. Shit, I'm kind of thinking wide receiver now. Holy shit!
That's what
I
I'm
wanted
saying.
tackle. I know the big con of not taking tackle is that you really need to redo the O-line again the next year, right?
Yeah.
But if you're doing this for Rodgers and to try and win the whole freaking thing,
You need wide receiver.
you need a wide receiver. Yeah. So the Mike Williams thing is going to be very interesting. If they get Mike Williams, then by all means, it's going to be a tackle.
Yeah.
But and as it should be, that would make the most sense. But it's not going to help immediately. Even it's only going to be there in a just in case situation, right?
Right.
Yeah, my dream would be Mike Williams, trade back, tackle, receiver, and then guard.
Yeah, that puts you in the Super Bowl conversation if you're able to do that.
It would be great if somehow when we get up to the clock and there's a quarterback there that Minnesota really wants, Joe Douglas starts fucking with them basically and is like 10 for 11 and also give us 23 or like a second rounder from Minnesota, which would be I guess do they know? Oh, they don't have a second rounder because they gave it to Houston. That's right.
Yeah.
Damn. But that'd be such a baller move. Joe Douglas. The memes of Joe Douglas and Stone Cold Steve Austin with the middle fingers up would come up.
Oh
yeah. I guess we could kind of. I don't know. I can keep going forever. I mean, St. Patrick's Day. I got my second beer. It's not alcoholics. I don't drink, but yeah, and you guys kind of quit drinking early, I guess, huh?
Not me. You haven't seen me been sipping on this thing the whole fucking.
Yeah.
St. Patty's Day, boys.
I celebrated St. Patrick's Day yesterday, so I'm a little banged up. So I'm just
Same.
I'm gonna be honest. Fireball, that just looks disgusting.
Dude, I give you credit for that. I can do like one shot of that, and then I am done with Fireball.
It's not fucking whiskey.
I'm
it's not whiskey.
Oh, I never said it was. I never said it was. I drink the good shit usually, but today it's St. Patty's Day. It's for the cheap shit. Jameson and
right.
Fireball and all the fun stuff that brings you back to college.
Jameson's good stuff, dude. Don't hate Jameson.
Oh, it's not. It's okay. It's an option.
Adnan, is Jameson good? Yes or no?
Yes, I'm a big Jameson fan, but I see where Monty is coming from, right? Like Jameson is, your go-to shot at the bar.
Yeah, like you just want to
stuff.
The bar's packed and sweaty, whatever, and you want a shot real quick for 4 or 5 people, and you just think of something quick off the top of your head. Yeah, 4 shots of JMO. Yeah,
exactly. But I think
Jameson, Jameson
just-
has like 18-year or 21-year-old brand versions of it, just like
I would
And
like to try
it
someday.
was fantastic. As a recovering alcoholic, if I was to go back,
Yeah,
that would be
your
the
thing.
first thing I would go for.
Dude, I feel like we should stop talking about. Dude, we're not going to hear from John for 2 weeks because of this Jameson conversation. What the hell happened to John?
I don't know.
Yeah, I like.
Yeah, and I guess
I like Focus John.
yeah, fair enough. So I guess from there we can go to final thoughts, right?
Cool.
All right. So final thoughts. All right, go ahead, Monty. I'll let you go first since
All right. Final thoughts. Great start to free agency. We need to nail this draft, though. I mean, it's absolutely critical at this point. We've had a great start. Things are looking up. Things are trending right. But it's I think all going to come down to how we proceed in this draft. Please God, let us be able to trade back, because that creates the most options for us. It gets us the most talent, and it loads our team up in a year where we're all in. And absolutely need everything that we can, all the firepower we can. We need all the linemen we can. We need the best receivers we can get. And that's going to give Aaron Rodgers what he needs to be successful and lead our team possibly to the promised land. But it's all up to the draft. And I trust Joe D. I think Joe D can get it done. I like him better when he has more picks available. I don't like this not having a second round this year. Really, really fucked us. But, yeah, exactly. That's what I was saying. I was kind of like shaky on that because it is, we did get Aaron Rodgers, but not having a second round this year, and having Aaron Rodgers, it kind of slowed us down, not to nailing this draft. With a second rounder, especially a decent second rounder this year, we absolutely would easily crush this draft in our sleep. But, not having the second rounder this year makes things a little tricky. So I hope we're able to lock that down by some grace of God miracle. And then we'll be talking about postseason.
Yeah, I think a couple of things. So first, Monty nailed everything about free agency. Great start. Definitely need to see a little bit more, but I'm very happy with the direction, that this team is going. Big week coming up with Mike Williams coming to visit. And I was just reading that, Tyler Boyd obviously will be the next best receiver after Mike Williams goes. So that market will be interesting depending on where Williams goes. Hopefully it's with the Jets. So, some good things to look forward to. The next two pieces of my final thoughts are for John. One, we did see that RFK will not be selecting Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah.
So everybody can sleep well. And also, I was just thinking, right, if the Jets are able to trade down from 10 and get a second round pick, then it's almost as if they got Aaron Rodgers for basically a pick swap. Mm-hmm. And that would be Joe Douglas just being the
crowning achievement,
man, right? Like being able to say, after all the said and done, we got Aaron Rodgers and we just had to move down 2 spots in the draft, right? So I think that will be a pretty cool thing. But yeah, I'm really excited for where this team is going. I was down on Douglas earlier in the week, but he's really come through so far. But again, more work to be done. John.
Okay. So yes, the RFK announcing that it's not going to be Aaron Rodgers is great. And if he wants to look for a VP candidate, Miss Lisa Ann has done an acting role as a vice president back in the day.
Yeah,
I want to thank. That was perfectly well done by me.
He was not going to let that go.
Yeah, I want to thank her so much for doing what she did. If you have been living under a rock for the last 10 years, you wouldn't know who she is. But trust me, I think everyone knows who she is, and she's greatly appreciative. And hopefully we do get her on the show. I'm going to work on that. The thing that's interesting about a trade back, actually, now that I think about it, I'm re-looking at the board again. Denver to hop Minnesota to a spot to get a quarterback is a possibility. And then Denver would give, I don't even know what they would give. but they do have some draft capital to work with, so it's interesting in itself there. Yeah, all I need to do was the Lisa Ann stuff. I think that joke just kind of got me. I was like, I was just ready for it. But yeah, this next week of free agency is going to be very interesting. And it's also going to be very interesting to see what the rest of the league does. I'm really looking at Tennessee and keeping my updates on them. I'm actually starting to follow the Tennessee beat writers now just to see what they're doing. But, I think they blew their wad, though, in free agency when they overpaid for Calvin Ridley. So who knows on that? I think Douglas has the right approach. It's got to be all in because the AFC actually looks a little bit more vulnerable this year than it did last year for sure, right? Especially in our division's gotten appreciably worse, right?
Yep.
So this year is the strike the iron year, and Kansas City is still there, of course. Baltimore is still there, but they lost like half their offensive line to us, right? So that's interesting in itself. Cincinnati will be back. We all know that. Cleveland's going to be back. Pittsburgh might be a thing. Who knows? Actually, that would be very interesting. They're going to extend Russell Wilson, it looks like. And then the AFC South is getting actually kind of competitive now, which scares me a little bit because that was supposed to be the cakewalk division, and we have to play that whole thing this year. Yeah, so I don't know. I guess, and we'll have further news about this podcast getting bigger and bigger. It looks like it's going to more news to that with millions and stuff like that. The guys that
more to come.
So, and we'll have more to come with that. But in the meantime, thank you for joining us through St. Patrick's Day. We hope that you don't drink and drive. Yeah, we all have experience doing that.
Party responsibly.
Yeah, party responsibly.
Not gonna do that. But in the meantime, fuck the Patriots. Fuck the Dolphins. Fuck the Bills. I'm going to say fuck the Giants, too. Why not? Yeah. Go Jets.
Go Jets.
Yeah.
Thanks everyone.
Thanks, everyone.